28 years later could make another zombie franchise's abandoned movie trilogy look even worse. After years of speculation and hope from fans, Danny Boyle's 28 Years Later is finally happening. As the third installment in the grim, genre-redefining series that began with 28 Days Later in 2002, the new film arrives with enormous expectations. Boyle, teaming once again with writer Alex Garland and original star Cillian Murphy as a producer, promises a revival that could do more than just satisfy fans of the franchise. It could put shame to other zombie series that never fulfilled their own ambitious trilogies. Chief among them, the World War Z franchise. Once envisioned as a massive, globe-spanning trilogy that would redefine the modern zombie genre with big-budget flair, World War Z ultimately fizzled into mediocrity after just one film. With 28 Years Later now on the horizon, that forgotten franchise could finally be eclipsed in the most brutal way possible by simply doing what World War Z never did, telling a cohesive, complete, and meaningful story across 3 films. 28 Years Later promises artistic vision, something World War Z lacked. One of the reasons 28 Days Later and its underrated sequel 28 Weeks Later remain so iconic is the creative integrity behind them. Danny Boyle's vision in 28 Days Later was haunting, raw, and bleak, a harrowing exploration of rage, humanity, and collapse. 28 Weeks Later, while directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, built on that terror with a broader scope and arguably even more disturbing set pieces. The World War Z movie, on the other hand, despite being based on Max Brooks's brilliant source material, was a diluted version of what could have been a thoughtful, geopolitical zombie epic. Studio interference, rewrites, and a chaotic production resulted in a product that was serviceable but soulless. A sequel directed by David Fincher was once announced but never materialized. The result, a missed opportunity and a trilogy cut short before it could even find its identity. In contrast, 28 Years Later comes from a creative team that appears to care deeply about the story they're telling. Boyle and Garland aren't returning just for a paycheck, they're here because they see a reason to finish what they started. That commitment alone puts 28 Years Later miles ahead of the abandoned ambitions of World War Z. A gritty apocalypse beats glossy blockbuster zombies. The infected in 28 Days Later aren't even technically zombies, they're victims of a rage virus, sprinting, snarling manifestations of humanity's worst impulses. And that's part of what made the original so terrifying. There was no glamour, no spectacle, just fear and survival. World War Z, by contrast, gave us PG-13 zombie swarms that piled like CGI ants over walls. The horror was more about scale than substance. But scale without soul is quickly forgotten. With 28 Years Later, the creative team has a chance to return to the stripped-down, character-focused dread that made the original resonate. If they succeed, they'll remind audiences just how effective horror can be when it's intimate, messy, and unflinching. That alone could make World War Z's glossy approach look even more tone-deaf than it already does. A complete trilogy is a rare thing in zombie cinema. Zombie franchises rarely get completed. George Romero's original trilogy Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead is a rare exception, but even that later morphed into spin-offs and tonally inconsistent follow-ups. The Walking Dead tried to do it through TV but fractured into too many pieces to maintain any cohesive arc. If 28 Years Later pulls off a satisfying narrative conclusion, it will be one of the few zombie trilogies to ever successfully do so. That will sting especially hard for World War Z, which not only failed to deliver a trilogy, but never even gave its audience a meaningful conclusion. Brad Pitt's Jerry Lane wandered off into a world of sequel limbo, and there he remains. Imagine if 28 Years Later delivers on character, theme, horror, and a definitive ending. That kind of closure could make World War Z feel not just incomplete, but obsolete. The legacy impact. What could have been? There's a haunting irony here. Max Brooks's